podcast where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to ROI facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The Bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
We're all about straight-up no BS analysis.
And today, we are diving into a story that, frankly, sounds like the kind of tall tale you hear leaning on the feed bunk at 5 a.m.
It really does. It's the kind of story that immediately triggers my internal hype meter. We're doing a deep dive into a feature piece that has some serious buzz in industry circles. And this one's got layers that'll make every farmer rethink their approach to chronic infections, their culling rate, and honestly, their entire treatment budget.
Because we're talking about an operation where the hospital pen is consistently empty.
Empty. That's the part that gets me.
That is the hook, isn't it? The empty pen.
For sure.
For anyone running 500 or, 5,000 cows, imagining that space just perpetually unused, it flies in the face of everything we've been taught about high production systems. But we are looking at some emerging data here on an approach that completely shifts the focus from the conventional goal of, killing bacteria with chemicals, to the radically different goal of jamming their internal communications.
And the timing on this couldn't be more critical. I mean, this is not just some theoretical science project. It's a necessity driven by resistance. We're hearing reports from producers all across the country battling humidity in Florida, high density in California, the intense cold cycles in Wisconsin.
And they're all seeing the same thing.
Exactly. Higher retreatment rates and increasingly resistant cases. Our old antibiotic toolbox is, it's running out of sharp edges.
That's a good way to put it. We've hit a resistance wall, and that wall is it's bleeding profit.
It is.
So the stakes here are absolutely massive. And to understand the real potential of this communication disruption, we need to talk about the hidden math.
The hidden math.
It's not just the cost of that intramammary tube we all reach for. It's the long-term financial hemorrhage we often ignore.
That's the crux of it, isn't it? The cost of resistance and failure extends miles beyond that initial purchase price.
So much further.
You've got producers, particularly in those high-stress areas. Think about the intensity of the summer battles in Georgia and North Carolina. They're finding that resistant summer cases can cost 3 times more than their winter treatments. And that's before you even factor in the labor, the dumped milk, the permanent scarring on the cow's productive potential.
And if this new protocol, this communication disruption strategy, if it actually proves itself at scale, the documented claim we need to scrutinize is, it's truly eye-watering.
Lay it on me.
A $775 net profit differential per cow.
Whoa. Okay, per cow.
A $775 advantage.
Yeah.
That kind of number is either genius, a fundamental shift in dairy economics, or it's pure, unadulterated marketing hype.
Exactly.
We need to see the receipts on that one. And we need to understand the risk, because that initial cost is definitely a huge mental hurdle. And that's our controversy preview right there. The initial investment for this alternative treatment is often double the cost of the traditional antibiotic approach.
Double.
That alone triggers skepticism. You pull out your ledger, you see twice the expense up front, and your farmer brain just immediately hits the brakes.
And rightfully so. I mean, no farmer is going to happily double their treatment input cost unless the outcome is demonstrably better.
Right.
And not just better, but significantly faster and much more reliable. Not just for that one case, but over the cow's entire productive lifetime.
But the real controversy, the one that requires the biggest leap of faith, is the psychological hurdle. We heard this repeatedly from producers who make the switch. You have to ditch 30 years of muscle memory.
30 years.
When you see a swollen quarter, your immediate visceral instinct is to reach for that familiar antibiotic poob. This protocol demands you stop, you observe, and you trust a different, newer science.
That's a big ask.
It is, and we're going to look at the data that proves why that risk, that mental shift, pays off dramatically in the long run.
All right, I'm skeptical, but I'm ready to be convinced. Let's jump in. I want to know about this empty pen, and more importantly, what this guy Nutcher is doing instead of treating.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our poster child for this approach is Trevor Nutcher's dairy in California's Central Valley.
High production, high stress environment, not some, low density grazing operation.
Exactly. Nutcher's facility used to cycle 20 plus sick cows through treatment at any given time, a constant drain on labor and resources.
20 cows. That's a full-time job for somebody.
It is. Now they have a consistently empty hospital pen, and he went cold turkey on antibiotics. So what stands out to you about that initial, almost unbelievable claim?
As a producer, I'm calling BS right off the bat, frankly.
I thought you were right.
Cold turkey in the Central Valley. That sounds like a disaster, just waiting for the vet to be called in for mass treatment.
But see, Trevor Nutcher is known for being a rigorous, data-driven manager. He's not someone who chases fads.
That's what makes it so shocking, but also why we have to pay attention. Most of us are we're fighting to manage selective dry cow therapy, trying to be judicious.
Right.
To eliminate them completely requires a replacement system that is unbelievably effective.
Yeah.
And consistent.
And he was candid about it. He said the first 72 hours of a new case tested everything he had learned in his entire career.
I bet.
Every instinct says grab the tube, but he didn't rely on prayer. He relied on a different science that addresses the root mechanism of resistance.
But let's be real about why this shift is even necessary right now. The core issue isn't that treatments fail in a clean environment.
No.
It's that the tools we rely on are losing their edge because the bacteria are They're organizing themselves better and developing resistance faster than we can invent new drugs.
We're stuck.
We're stuck in a retreatment cycle that is financially devastating.
That's precisely right. The core issue isn't the occasional failure. It's resistance, retreatment, and the profound compounding loss of long-term productivity.
Right.
We are so focused on the input cost, that $8 to $15 tube of medication, that we completely ignore the cascade of secondary costs.
We obsess over the direct cost, but that's what we call the iceberg effect.
Yeah.
So what are the submerged costs that are actually crushing profitability, the ones this new protocol claims to eliminate?
Well, we identified 4 major categories based on the tracking data. The first one is obvious, but it's often underestimated.
Okay.
Milk dumping during extended withdrawal periods.
Sure.
If your cow is producing 90 pounds and you have a 7-day withdrawal, that's 630 pounds of milk revenue permanently gone.
Gone forever.
At today's prices, let's just assume $20 a hundredweight. That's over $120 of lost revenue right there, just for the withdrawal, not even counting the drop in production before you treated.
And that's money you can never, ever get back. But the second one, for me, that's the true killer.
What's that?
Productive days lost to chronic cases. That cow that clears somatic cell count, then flares up again in 30 days, maybe 60. She is never performing at her peak.
Never.
She's dragging down the whole pen average for months. You lose efficiency, feed conversion suffers, and her lactation curve is it's depressed for the rest of the year.
And that leads directly to the third killer, which is forced early culling decisions.
The one you hate to make.
That chronic cow, the one that never quite comes back, the one that flares up every time she's stressed, you're eventually sending her off sooner than planned.
Right.
The producer we quoted in Pennsylvania, he put it perfectly. He said, "We're so focused on the treatment cost, we forget about the cow that never quite comes back."
And that loss of productive longevity is the silent killer on the dairy balance sheet. Replacing a cow prematurely means you're accelerating your replacement heifer cost.
Right.
And you're losing out on the highest producing, most feed-efficient years of that cow's life. If your replacement costs $1,800 and you cull a third lactation cow 6 months early because of chronic issues, you've just eaten half of that replacement cost prematurely.
Exactly. And the fourth category, which ties back to that regional stress you mentioned, is the multiplier effect of resistance. When antibiotic fails, you don't just spend the money again. You often spend more on aggressive, extended protocols.
You're throwing good money after bad.
One operation in Athens, Georgia, dealing with that intense summer heat and humidity, they reported their resistant summer cases cost 3 times what winter cases do.
3 times.
When you factor in the extended recovery, the increased labor, and that loss of future production potential. That's why a protocol that eliminates chronic cases can justify double the upfront cost.
Okay, so we have to start viewing mastitis treatment Not as a cheap input, but as an expensive insurance policy, that is.
Well, it's currently failing.
It is. The economic upside, that huge profit differential, it has to come from eliminating those 4 hidden costs.
And here's where it gets really interesting, where we shift from economics to biology. Why is the old method failing us?
Yeah, let's get into that.
We've relied on antibiotics for decades, and they worked beautifully when resistance was low. But now we're back to that central dilemma described by Dr. Jeff Ackert from AHV International.
What's that?
He said, we're trying to defeat an organized army by capturing individual soldiers.
Wait. An organized army? That sounds a little dramatic.
I know.
Explain that in former English. And tell me what the biological mechanism is. I need the technical details before I buy the analogy.
Okay. The mechanism is sophisticated, but it's manageable. Bacteria are not just individual floating cells randomly waiting to be killed.
Right.
They are capable of incredibly coordinated group behavior. They form these protective structures called biofilms.
Biofilms.
Think of the most stubborn slime that builds up in your water lines, or that greasy residue in a feed trough that's impossible to scrub out.
Right, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That is a simple version of a biofilm, but this is happening right inside the mammary gland tissue.
So they build a fortress.
Yeah.
An extracellular polymeric substance.
Yeah.
An EPS matrix. That's what those films are made of.
Precisely. And that EPS matrix is a protective shield that makes the bacteria tenfold, sometimes up to a staggering 1,000-fold, more resistant to traditional antibiotic treatments.
1,000.
The antibiotic can't penetrate the shield effectively, or if it does, the concentration is too low to kill the sheltered bacteria.
Okay, that explains why we can pour aggressive treatments into a cow and still see the infection flare up again weeks later.
Yes.
The bacteria weren't killed, they were just hunkered down inside their slime layer, waiting.
Yeah.
So if we can't shoot through the walls, how does this new method deal with the fortress?
Well, the strategy is to dismantle the coordination needed to build the fortress, or to even initiate the attack in the first place.
So you stop them before they start.
Which raises an important question. How do bacteria decide when they have enough troops to launch an attack?
I was just assumed the attack was opportunistic. You know, the cow gets stressed, her immune system dips, and poof, infection.
That's part of the trigger, but the organization is the key. Bacteria actually talk to each other using specific chemical signals.
They talk to each other.
That's the process called quorum sensing. They use these autoinducers, things like acylhomosтерine lactones or AI2, to count their population density. It's like a chemical cell phone system.
So they're taking a head count.
Exactly. And once they hit a certain concentration, a quorum, they signal each other saying, okay, we have enough troops now. Activate the genes, build the biofilm, launch the systemic inflammatory attack.
Wow. So the infection that spikes during transition or during heat stress or when the ration gets slightly off,
Yeah.
that's not random failure. That's a coordinated strategic attack that the bacteria have been planning.
Exactly. They wait for the moment the cow is stressed and her immune system is distracted.
And the cow's immune system, it can handle individual bacteria just fine, right?
Perfectly capable. It's built for that. The problem is the coordinated, overwhelming group attack that breaches the immune defenses and establishes that chronic infection inside the biofilm.
So the goal of quorum sensing inhibition, or QSI, the technical name for this new protocol, is basically biological sabotage.
That's a great way to put it.
You jam those autoinducer signals. You scramble their chemical cell phone signals so they can't count their troops, they can't coordinate the attack, and they can't activate the genes to build that protective biofilm.
That's the perfect analogy. You turn the organized army back into a bunch of confused, disorganized stragglers.
And then the cow's own immune system, which was overwhelmed by the coordinated attack,
now just has to mop up individual confused bacteria effectively. It leverages the cow's natural defenses rather than trying to overpower the bacteria with increasingly ineffective chemistry.
That is a fascinating biological leverage point. It changes the entire paradigm from a battle of chemical firepower to a strategic disruption of logistics.
Right.
And that difference, if the data holds up, is what drives that massive economic gain we were talking about.
Let's follow the money, because this is where the theory turns into hard numbers that you can take to the bank.
Okay.
The critical case study came from Joe Soares' operation, which unfortunately was hit during last year's H5N1 outbreak.
Oh, wow.
This provided a devastating but really useful real-world stress test. It gave a direct comparison between methods under immense challenge.
H5N1 put incredible stress on the mammary glands and tested every health protocol we had. It was a true stress event. So how did the two protocols compare at his two facilities?
So Soares runs two large facilities. The Chowchilla facility followed traditional supportive protocol.
Usual stuff.
Electrolytes, aspirin powder, B12, the standard care we rely on when managing a viral or infectious challenge.
And what was the initial cost for those supportive inputs?
$26.71 per cow treated.
Okay, $26.71. That's a very respectable low input cost. Most farmers would look at that number and say, that's cheap.
They would.
But what was the recovery outcome? That's what matters.
The recovery was brutal. According to their records, it took weeks for cows to stabilize and return to the line.
Weeks.
And crucially, several cows suffered permanent production loss. They never quite bounced back to their pre-infection curve.
So that cheap input cost led to devastating long-term outcomes.
Exactly.
And what about the Turlock facility, the one that implemented the quorum sensing inhibition protocol?
Okay, Turlock implemented the QSI communication disruption protocol. The initial cost there was $54.02 per cow treated.
$54.02. That is exactly double the upfront expense compared to Chowchilla. I can already hear the objections. Why am I spending twice as much on a science experiment when I can buy aspirin for a fraction of that? We need a very compelling reason for that double cost.
The compelling reason is the recovery speed and the preservation of long-term production. Turlock cows returned to normal production in a rapid 3 days.
3 days.
3 days, compared to weeks of instability and permanent production damage at Chowchilla.
That is a staggering difference. I mean, if a cow is down for 3 days versus 14 days, that's 11 days of maintained production we've saved.
Right.
But how does that 3-day recovery actually translate into that massive $775 net profit differential claim? We need to see the math.
We absolutely do, and the calculation validates the severity of those 4 hidden costs we discussed. Let's start with the maintained production.
Okay.
The Turlock group maintained 11 pounds more milk per cow per day during the critical recovery and subsequent post-infection period compared to the Chowchilla group.
11 pounds. That's huge, especially since this protocol is supposed to prevent the permanent tissue damage that results in those chronically depressed lactation curves.
Precisely. If we use a conservative milk value, let's say $22 a hundredweight, or 22 cents a pound.
Okay.
And we project that 11-pound difference over just the first 30 days of recovery for a cow that avoided chronicity. That difference alone accounts for $72.60 in immediate revenue saved.
But wait, that only counts for about $73. Where does the other $700 come from?
It comes from avoiding the downstream consequences, which are harder to track, but far more expensive.
Okay.
The Chowchilla group had significantly higher rates of retreatment, subsequent flares, and early culling probability. The $775 net profit differential factors in 1. Avoided retreatment.
Right, eliminating that $180 to $200 cost of a second or third failure.
2. Increased longevity. Preserving the cow's productive life for an extra 6 months to a year by preventing chronic damage.
And when you factor in the avoided cost of a replacement heifer, that alone could be worth $300 or $400 per cow.
And 3, fertility gains. As we'll discuss in the next segment, the healthier cows had dramatically better fertility outcomes, which saves those non-productive days.
So the 775 isn't just a function of the first 3 days. It's the accumulated savings over the subsequent 180 to 365 days of the cow's productive life, because you successfully prevented that systemic organized bacterial damage.
That's it.
It completely validates the idea that we're focused on the wrong cost metrics. We need to be tracking ROI on lifetime health outcomes, not just input expenses.
And the most compelling practical evidence was the behavior. The collar monitoring data from Turlock showed measurable improvement in eating and chewing cud within 24 hours of treatment initiation.
Now, that is the metric a farmer trusts. If the cow is eating and chewing cud within a day, she feels better fast. That rapid behavioral recovery indicates the inflammatory response. The systemic sickness caused by that coordinated bacterial attack was neutralized immediately.
It allows the cow to return to normal metabolic function rather than spending energy fighting the infection.
Her immune system wasn't overwhelmed. It was suddenly empowered to clean up the confused stragglers.
The return to the milk line wasn't just a statistical formality. It was a physical reality confirmed by the cow's own activity data.
That's powerful stuff.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the profound systemic health improvement suggested by the QSI protocol extends far beyond just udder health.
Okay.
While mastitis is the immediate problem it solves, the data suggests this technology is boosting overall herd resilience.
Wait, you mean jamming bacterial communication doesn't just clear up a quarter? It can make the cow more fertile. That sounds like a marketing leap too far.
I know it sounds like it.
I need to know the mechanism that links udder health to reproductive performance.
The link is systemic inflammation. A cow constantly battling chronic, low-grade infections has elevated levels of stress and inflammation.
Right.
And that directly interferes with hormone cycles and metabolic energy allocation. When you eliminate that chronic battle, you free up energy and normalize those hormone cycles.
Okay, that makes sense. A healthier, less stressed cow is a more fertile cow. Show me the data.
The data is massive.
Right.
Irish trials covering 6 farms and 1,344 cows documented several massive overall health improvements.
Okay.
The obvious one was the antibiotic reduction, a 74.8% drop in overall use across those 6 farms.
Almost 75% reduction. That's a huge step towards sustainability and securing future antibiotic-free premium.
It is.
That number alone justifies the investment for many forward-thinking operations.
But the real kickers for profitability were the fertility gains. Conception rates went up by 9.3%.
9%, that's significant.
And even more dramatically, days open were cut by 28 days across the herd.
28 days. Cutting 28 days open is pure profit.
It's huge.
That means earlier pregnancies, tighter calving intervals, and optimizing the lactation curve for peak efficiency. If the protocol cost $54, but it saved me 28 days open per cow, I would pay that price every single time.
Even if you were already running a tight ship on mastitis.
Exactly. It signals that the fundamental health status of the herd has improved. This protocol isn't just treating a symptom, it's removing that chronic drain on the cow's immune and metabolic system.
Right.
Okay, the economic argument is compelling, but we know nothing works for every barn and every operation is unique.
Good point.
We need the farmer reality check. Where did the source material indicate this approach falls flat? Because if it were perfect, everyone would be doing it already.
That is an important question. The data shows this approach offers the highest return. That $775 net profit differential to high-challenge herds trapped in chronic retreatment cycles.
Right, so the worse your problem, the better the solution looks.
The return on investment is lower for operations that are already running exceptionally low somatic cell counts and high fertility. For example, a Vermont grazing operation with already low infection rates. They reported mixed outcomes.
They didn't have the high baseline losses to eliminate, so the return wasn't as dramatic.
Exactly. So if you're already crushing it, the ROI might not justify the learning curve.
That's fair. What about facility type? We saw those Texas and Florida numbers, which are typically large freestall dairies. What about smaller, older setups?
Well, the implementation challenge was specifically noted in certain farm types. A 200-cow tie stall barn in Wisconsin found it difficult to implement effectively.
And why is that? Logistical.
It's logistical. This QSI approach demands catching the problem within that crucial 24 to 72-hour window.
And in a traditional tie stall setup, how do they monitor? They're relying on manual visual checks or maybe a quick CMT paddle test.
Exactly. In a tie stall, catching that critical 24-hour window requires walking the line manually every few hours.
Which is feasible in a very small 50-cow barn, but it becomes a massive, unsustainable labor drain in a 200-cow facility.
They simply lack the automatic conductivity monitoring and immediate alert systems of a modern robot or freestall setup.
That makes perfect sense. The success of this protocol is directly linked to the speed of intervention, and labor constraints in older facilities make that speed basically impossible.
And we also need to consider regional variance. It's not a magic bullet. Operations in the Southeast dealing with year-round high humidity, or Florida producers facing intense heat stress and constant microbial pressure. They reported needing adjusted protocols.
Why the adjustment? Doesn't the QSI just jam the signal?
It jams the signal, but it doesn't eliminate the underlying environmental pressure, the massive pathogen load that humidity sustains.
Ah, okay.
Producers in these zones found that to maintain the empty hospital pen, they often needed to combine QSI treatments with a specific supportive measure.
Like what?
Like nutritional supplements to boost immunity, or a feed additive to manage overall pathogen load. They can't rely on QSI alone to overcome a sustained, oppressive environmental challenge.
Right, and Texas and New Mexico operations, with dry lot conditions and intense heat stress, have different demands entirely.
Totally different. often requiring rapid intervention for systemic heat-related stress before QSI can even begin its work on the udder.
So it requires smart, tailored implementation. But there's a huge, clear tech advantage here, right?
Absolutely. For operations with robotic milking systems, that continuous 24/7 monitoring of conductivity, flow rate, and milk color, it helps catch that crucial 24 to 72-hour response window far better than any manual check ever could.
That's the perfect marriage of modern technology and advanced biology. The robot catches the subtle change, alerts the team, and they hit them with the QSI protocol immediately.
Before the bacteria can build the biofilm fortress.
That fast intervention maximizes the effectiveness of the communication disruption, securing that high economic upside.
So we've established the science and we've proven the economics with that $775 net profit differential.
But now we have to talk about the hardest part.
The psychological hurdle. As Dr. Sarah Mitchell said, the biggest challenge isn't the science. It's changing 30 years of muscle memory when you see that first swollen quarter.
It takes serious courage. We're trained. Swelling equals infection. Infection equals antibiotic.
It's an automatic response.
To watch a cow with a visibly swollen quarter and stand there waiting for her own immune system to clear the bacteria, relying on a signal jammer, that is a moment of truth that challenges every fiber of your farming instinct.
It requires believing in the process over the immediate satisfying chemical response. The first time a farmer makes that call to go with the communication disruption instead of the antibiotic, that decision is emotionally taxing.
So what does the farmer actually see in those first few days? I mean, traditional antibiotics give that quick, familiar knockdown effect. The swelling reduces rapidly. It might not fix the long-term problem, but you feel like you did something immediately. Does this new method feel slower, or is it just different?
It's a different healing trajectory, and that's why the patience is tested. Traditional antibiotics aim for that quick kill, which often works fast but fails to penetrate the biofilm and over time contributes to resistance.
Okay.
Communication disruption is slower to show physical resolution. It takes 24 to 72 hours. That's the window for the cow's own immune system to clear the confused bacteria that can no longer organize their attack.
So the inflammation and the visible swelling might persist for a day or two, even though the internal biological protocol is working.
Exactly.
The body just needs time to clean up the mess.
Yes. The bacteria are disorganized, but the inflammation and tissue damage need time to resolve naturally. You're waiting for the cow's body to finish the job.
Which is why those first 72 hours are so critical.
You must resist the urge to panic and jump back to the familiar antibiotic. Otherwise, you undermine the entire QSI protocol.
So for the farmer listening right now who's intrigued by the economic upside but terrified of this empty hospital pen concept, what are the traits of a successful transition based on operations like Nutcher's that have already navigated this shift?
Okay, successful transitions share several key traits. Number one, start with prevention during dry-off and fresh cow periods.
Low-hanging fruit. The safest place to introduce the new philosophy.
By using QSI protocols at dry-off, you're setting the cow up for a successful next lactation by ensuring she transitions without the internal presence of an organized bacterial army.
That's a smart, phased approach. You don't overhaul your active treatment pen on day one. You start at the beginning of the next productive cycle. Protect your next lactations first.
Number two, look beyond per-treatment costs to total economics. We've hammered this point, but you must calculate the true cost of failure.
You have to.
If you're only comparing a $54 input cost to a $26 input cost, you will never switch. But if you're comparing a $775 net profit differential to long-term chronic failure, depressed lactation curves, and accelerated culling risk, the decision becomes a financial imperative.
Use that hidden cost calculator methodology we talked about.
And number three, which is crucial for consistency and safety, get your vet on board early.
Yes. Absolutely. They need to support the shift in treatment philosophy. If your vet is still fundamentally tied to the old school of thought, they're going to encourage you to switch back the second you see a questionable quarter.
You need that medical partnership and confidence. You need to ensure they understand the quorum sensing science and the specific clinical markers you're looking for during that 24 to 72 hour response window.
Right. Your veterinarian is your key partner in risk management. They have to believe the science is sound.
Absolutely.
And finally, we have to talk about long-term positioning. We are seeing continued pressure, both from the consumer market and potentially regulatory bodies, toward reducing antibiotic use.
Right.
The 775 advantage is great, But the market access advantage, that's the ultimate prize.
That's right. Premium contracts for antibiotic-free milk vary widely by region and processor, but a 75% reduction in overall antibiotic use makes you highly competitive for those contracts.
Of course.
This isn't just about saving money on vet bills. This is about positioning your operation for the future market. This innovation is less a treatment plan and more a total herd health philosophy shift that drives massive ROI potential and market resilience.
For sure.
All right, let's bring it back to the barn. A farmer just finished milking, is driving to the feed store, mulling over this empty pen and the economic upside. What are the 3 things they need to remember from today?
Okay, the first one is foundational, and it requires radical transparency with your own ledger.
Number 1, stop guessing your true costs.
The insight here is that most producers drastically underestimate the total cost of a chronic case. We fail to factor in that milk dump, the retreatment labor, and the critical culling risk.
Right.
That $775 net profit differential is found by eliminating hidden losses, not by cutting corners.
So your immediate action this week needs to be practical. You have to stop using the cost of the tube as your metric.
You have to.
Start tracking failure rates and retreatment rates carefully. Use the hidden cost calculator methodology to document the true dollars lost to milk dump and calculate the probability of culling versus the replacement cost. Get the hard, honest number for what chronicity is truly costing you.
In your medium-term strategy over the next 3 to 6 months, if your calculated true cost per case is high, say, over $350 when all factors are considered, you use that hard data to justify piloting the new protocol.
Start small.
Start small. Maybe only in your most chronic group of cows or during a high challenge period like the start of heat stress. Prove the economic concept on your own farm first.
And long-term positioning, looking ahead 1 to 2 years.
If the pilot results deliver a compelling return on health, plan for a full transition. This means securing buy-in from your vet and herd manager and focusing not just on udder health, but on that peripheral benefit, the reduction of overall non-productive days and the improved conception rates.
That's how you bake the profit differential into your operating system.
Exactly. Moving on to the second takeaway, which covers the scientific shift that enables this massive economic advantage.
Number 2, understand the new battleground. Coordination, not killing.
The insight is this. The future of health management is not fighting biofilms with increasingly ineffective antibiotics. It's about strategic biological sabotage.
Preventing bacteria from organizing using quorum sensing inhibition.
We are moving from chemical warfare, which the bacteria are winning, to logistical disruption, which leverages the cow's own immunity.
So your immediate action this week. Evaluate your current challenge points. Are infections spiking consistently during transition or heat stress or after a tough ration change?
And recognize that these aren't random events. These are moments when the bacteria are successfully coordinating their attack using those autoinducer chemical signals.
And your medium-term strategy, 3 to 6 months out.
If you transition, you must commit mentally to that 24 to 72-hour window of immune system clearance. Prepare yourself for that delayed but fundamentally more complete response compared to the quick chemical knockdown of traditional antibiotics.
You need to trust the science during that critical waiting period.
You do. And the long-term positioning, especially for operations that have invested in modern monitoring tech. If you have a robot system or automated neck collars, leverage that 24/7 monitoring capability.
Use the tech you paid for.
That continuous data flow catching the issue at the first subtle drop in conductivity. That is the difference between intervention at the individual bacteria stage and waiting until the army has fully organized. You maximize the effectiveness of the protocol's narrow, crucial response window.
Okay, and finally the third point, which covers risk management and implementation phasing.
Right. Number 3, know your baseline and transition smartly.
The insight here is that this approach offers the highest financial upside for dairies trapped in chronic retreatment cycles.
But it may not be the optimal fit for non-automated systems, like large tie stalls or operations with already exceptionally low infection rates. You have to know your farm's baseline challenge.
Immediate action this week. Even if you're maintaining a traditional program, focus your current prevention efforts strictly on the dry-off and fresh cow periods.
Yes.
These are the 2 most critical entry points for infection, and they are the exact same entry points for the new QSI protocols. Optimizing these 2 processes now prepares you logically and logistically for any future transition.
A medium-term strategy, 3 to 6 months.
If you decide to transition, adopt that phased nurture approach. Begin strictly with the dry-off protocols for one full cycle before expanding to fresh cow management, say, month 4 to 6.
It ensures a gradual, controlled shift where you prove the concept and gain confidence without jeopardizing your current lactation pen entirely.
And the long-term positioning, 1 to 2 years out.
View this innovation as part of the broader cycle of dairy change. We know the old saying, change in dairy comes slowly, then suddenly.
So true.
Getting your systems, your herd managers, and your veterinarian ready for bacterial communication disruption means that when the market suddenly demands lower antibiotic use, you'll be the one writing the management playbooks, not struggling to follow them.
This has been a critical dive into the intersection of cutting-edge biology and herd economics.
That empty hospital pen is a powerful image, and that $775 net profit differential is a number that should have every producer calculating their true mastitis costs this week.
Absolutely. The future of dairy health management hinges on leveraging the cow's natural defenses and disrupting the pathogen's ability to organize. It's about being scientifically smarter, not just spending more money on inputs that are failing.
This has been another Bullvine podcast from the Bullvine Podcast. For more straight-talking industry analysis, head to www.thebullvine.com.
Subscribe wherever you get podcasts. We're out with new episodes every day. And upcoming topics will be teasing apart the difference between cow comfort ROI and freestall versus pasture-based systems. Which one delivers the most bang for your buck in terms of sustained longevity and fertility? Thank you for listening.